a quiet archive record. Tonight, we're stepping into a slow unfolding. Settle in. Let the outside world dissolve and gently descend into tonight's world. First contact is one of the biggest ideas in human history. It sits between science, rumor, fear, and hope. The problem is that most stories about it get told in a loud way, or they get told with missing details. Tonight, we do something slower. We will look at 10 cases that people often point to when they argue that contact may already have happened, or that something non-human may have interacted with us. For each case, we will stick to the core claim, the best evidence people cite, the strongest objections, and what remains unknown. Tonight, we go through the 10 strongest cases for first contact. We begin at number 10, and as we count down, we do not treat the list like a contest. We treat it like a gentle path, one step at a time, one file at a time, one calm breath between each case. Number 10. Someone asks, what is a strong modern case for possible contact that does not depend on a single dramatic story? A careful answer is to start with signals. Not lights in the sky, not a crash story, but a narrowband radio event that looked unusual for its time. The best-known example is the event nicknamed the WOW signal. The WOW signal was detected in 1977 by the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio. It was part of a survey that listened for unusual radio activity. The telescope was scanning the sky. It did not track one object with a dish that follows a target. Instead, it used a fixed structure and the rotation of Earth to sweep the beam. That detail matters. It means a real distant signal would rise and fall in a specific pattern. And the WOW signal did show that kind of rise and fall. The printout that made it famous is simple. It is not a dramatic photo. It is a line of numbers and letters that represent signal strength. On that paper, someone wrote one word. Wow. That note is not proof, but it shows the reaction of a person who had seen a lot of noise before. The core claim is not that this was a message. The core claim is that it matched a few basic expectations for an artificial signal. It was narrow in frequency. It was strong. It appeared close to the hydrogen line region, a part of the radio spectrum that many researchers thought could be a natural meeting point. Hydrogen is common. Hydrogen is important. So some people guessed that a sender might choose a frequency near that. People also point out that the signal lasted for about as long as the telescope beam would take to pass a fixed point. It rose, it peaked, it fell. That is what you would expect if the beam swept over a distant source. Now, we slow down and look at the limits. A single event is not a pattern. If you hear one unusual sound in the night, you can wonder, but you cannot be sure what it was. In radio astronomy, this problem is constant. There is interference from Earth. There is interference from satellites. There is the atmosphere. There are reflections. There are unknown transmitters. There are odd glitches. So the strongest objection is the one that never goes away. The WOW signal was never confirmed. It happened once. It did not repeat. The telescope did not detect it again in later passes, and other telescopes did not later find it. There are also competing ideas about what could make something like this. Some ideas are technical, a brief reflection of a transmitter, a satellite passing at the right time, a distant aircraft signal, a piece of equipment noise. Some ideas are natural. Certain emissions can be narrow. But many researchers think nature is less likely to make such a clean, narrow spike at that strength. A theory involving comets was suggested. The idea was that hydrogen could be connected to a comet. Some people found that convincing. Others argued it did not fit the strength and the narrowband shape. And because the event never repeated, the argument is hard to settle. So what remains unknown? The source, the mechanism, the reason it appeared once, and the reason it did not return. In the quiet archive view, number 10 is a small, clean mystery. It is also a good case to place at the beginning because it is quiet. It does not ask you to picture beings. It does not ask you to picture a government cover story. It asks you to picture a person in a room full of equipment, a telescope listening, a printer printing, a line of characters that is stronger than normal. If you have ever listened to static on a radio, you know the feeling. Most of it is nothing. Most of it is noise. And then, once in a while, something cuts through. A voice, a tone, a station, a pattern. The wow signal is that kind of moment, but in a scientific context. It is a pattern that made a human stop and mark it. Not because it was beautiful, because it was strange. And it shows the slow sadness of science. Even if something calls out once, you still need the second call. You still need the third. Otherwise, you are left with a single page in a folder. That single page can still be meaningful, not as proof, as motivation. It reminds researchers to keep scanning. It reminds us that the sky is not fully mapped, and it reminds us that the unknown does not always arrive with a spotlight. Sometimes it arrives as one sharp line in a sea of noise. It is not proof of contact, but it is one of the better examples of a simple fact. If contact ever happens, it might not start with a craft over a city. It might start as a brief signal that looks meaningful and then disappears into the noise. Number 9. Someone asks, what is a case where we have modern military sensor footage, not just a personal story? A strong example is the Aguadilla, Puerto Rico incident, filmed in 2013 by a US Department of Homeland Security aircraft. The clip is infrared video. It shows a small object moving near the coast and over water. The core claim in this case is that the object appears to move in a strange way. It seems to travel along the coastline. It seems to pass over the water. It seems to change apparent speed. And there are moments where it looks like it might split, or become two, or pass into the water. People value this case because it is not a random upload. It is a government sensor clip. It was taken from a platform that was doing real operations. It is not a special effects test made for entertainment. That does not make it true, but it raises the starting quality of the evidence. Analysts also like this case because it has been studied with basic physics. The camera system has known behavior. The aircraft has a known speed. The coastline is visible. Some analysis tries to estimate how far the target is. If you have the distance, you can estimate speed. If you do not, the same motion can mean very different things. One of the most discussed moments is the apparent split. At one point, the object looks like it becomes two bright shapes. Some interpretations say it looks like a craft enters the water and then two objects emerge. Others say it looks like it passes behind something, or the camera tracking creates a double image. Infrared video can create strange shapes when the system is trying to stabilize and lock. A bright spot can smear. A target can blur. This is where we keep the tone calm. Infrared is not a magic truth machine. It is a sensor. It shows contrast. It shows heat and reflectivity in a special way. A bird can look like a glowing dot. A small object close to the camera can look like a large object far away. A target can seem to speed up because the aircraft turns. So the strongest objections are not emotional. They are technical. They point out that without the full sensor package, you can argue forever. You can build one model where the object is far and fast, or another model where the object is close and slow. Some researchers argue the best fit is something mundane: a balloon, a bird, a small drone, a piece of debris. They argue the speed and the path can be explained by the aircraft motion and perspective. Other researchers argue the case still has features that are hard. The path looks smooth. The object seems to maintain a stable track. The split moment seems unusual. So what remains unknown? The raw data, the range, the full tracking information, and the true identity of the object. In the Quiet Archive view, number 9 is a case about measurement. It is stronger than a story because it is a sensor, but it is weaker than a full dataset because it is only a clip. It sits on the edge of what can be explained and what cannot. Number 8. Someone asks, what is the most famous modern naval case that includes trained military witnesses and multiple sensors? A strong answer is the 2004 USS Nimitz case, often called the Tic Tac incident. The core claim is that US Navy personnel detected unusual tracks. They were tracked on radar. They appeared to move in ways that did not match normal aircraft. Pilots were sent to investigate. In the air, pilots reported seeing an object that looked like a smooth white capsule. It had no wings. It had no visible engine. It did not show a normal exhaust. The encounter is often described in a few key moments. First, radar operators reported tracks that appeared and disappeared. Some tracks seemed to descend rapidly. Then pilots arrived in the area. One pilot described seeing something on the ocean surface, a disturbance, like white water, like something big under the surface. Above that, they saw the object. The object was described as moving quickly and sharply. It seemed to respond to the jet. It seemed to mirror or match. Then it accelerated away. Later, another element of the story is often cited. After the encounter, pilots returned to the carrier. Then they were told the object had appeared at a different point, a point related to a planned meeting location. People debate what that means. Some see it as intelligence. Some see it as coincidence. Some see it as a mistake in retelling. The best evidence people point to is the multi-layer nature. It is not one person. It is not one sensor. It is a network: radar, pilots, operations, communications. This does not make it aliens, but it makes it harder to dismiss as a simple hoax. Hoaxes rely on one weak link, a rumor, a single witness, a blurry photo. Now the strongest objections. First, most of the data is not public. We do not have the full radar files. We do not have all sensor tapes. We have accounts. We have some released video related to later events. We have official acknowledgement that unknown objects were reported. But we do not have the whole packet. Second, humans misperceive. A distant plane can look like a strange shape. A balloon can look like it moves oddly. A heat shimmer can distort. Stress can change memory. Third, radar can be wrong. Radar can create false tracks. Radar can be fooled. A system can have calibration issues. A new radar can show things operators are not used to. So what remains? Unknown. The origin. Foreign technology. Domestic testing. Natural phenomena. or something else? In quiet archive terms, number 8 ranks high because it is modern and layered. It is a case where the best explanation is not settled. And it is a case where serious people stayed interested after the first excitement faded. Number 7. Someone asks, is there another modern military case with a released video and later official confirmation? A major example is the 2015 Navy video, often called Gimbal. The core claim is that a fighter jet sensor captured an object that looked unusual. The camera locks on. The object appears as a dark shape against a lighter background. There are voices reacting. At one point, the object appears to rotate. People focus on that rotation. They ask, is the object turning? Is it a disc? Is it rolling? Is it showing a maneuver? The strongest evidence for number 7 is the chain of context. It is a real military clip. It was part of a set of clips. Officials confirmed the clips were real. Pilots also reported seeing unknown objects. The reports were not only online stories, they were part of internal systems. Now the strongest objections. Modern sensors can create false impressions. The word gimbal is itself a hint. A gimbal is the moving mount that stabilizes the camera. So one objection is that the rotation might be the camera system. A glare effect can rotate as the optics rotate. The object might not be rotating. The image might be rotating. Another objection is distance. If the object is far, it could be a normal aircraft seen from an angle. Infrared contrast can hide details. A jet can look like a flat blob. So what remains unknown? The full sensor data, the range, the identity, and whether the rotation is physical or optical. In quiet archive terms, number 7 remains strong because it is official and modern. But it is also a case that teaches the audience to be careful. A short clip is not enough. We need the context around it. Number 6. Someone asks, what about the other famous 2015 Navy clip, often called Go Fast? The core claim in Go Fast is that a small object is seen over the ocean. The camera tracks it. It looks like it is moving fast. The audio includes excitement. This clip is included because it is part of the same general set of modern reports. It shows that unknown contacts were not one event. There were multiple. But Go Fast is ranked lower than Gimbal because the technical objection is strong. Many analysts argue that the object is not going fast. The object is drifting. The camera and the jet are moving. A target can appear fast because the background is moving. If the target is small and closer than assumed, the speed estimate drops. So the strongest objections are that this could be mundane. A balloon, a bird, a piece of debris, a small object in wind. What remains unknown, the exact identity, and whether any part of the event included other sensor data that is not public. In the quiet archive view, number 6 is included as a reminder. Even in official footage, a name can mislead. A clip called Go Fast can still be a slow object seen in a confusing geometry. Number 5. Someone asks, what is a case with many witnesses, official involvement, and a long period of reports, but not centered on a single video? A strong example is the Belgian UFO wave from 1989 to 1990. The core claim is that Belgium experienced a sustained period of sightings. Many reports described large triangular objects with lights. Some reports involved police. The Belgian Air Force became involved. There were radar contacts. And the case became famous because officials treated it seriously. The evidence people point to is the volume and the structure. It was not a one-night wave of fear. It lasted. It had patterns. and it involved reports from people who were not trying to be famous. But the Belgian wave also has an important lesson. A famous photo circulated. It looked like a clear triangle craft. Later, that specific photo was confessed as a hoax. That does not erase the entire wave, but it shows how easily a narrative can be polluted. A single fake can become the poster image, and then critics can use that to dismiss everything. So we keep two thoughts at once. 1. There was a real wave of reports. 2. At least one famous piece of evidence was fake. The strongest objections focus on misidentification and social spread. Once people expect triangles, they see triangles. Planes at night can look like a triangle of lights. Helicopters can hover. Stars can seem to shift when you stare. Radar is also complicated. Radar can track odd returns. It can track noise. It can be confused by conditions. What remains unknown is whether there was a real core of unknown craft. Some witnesses were credible. Some reports were consistent, and the official response was unusual. In quiet archive terms, number 5 is a case about a society watching the sky together. It is messy, but it is large, and it leaves a question behind. Was there a real unknown event inside that noise? Number 4. Someone asks, what is a classic military encounter where the official documentation and the pilot reports are unusually strong? A strong example is the Tehran incident from 1976. The core claim is that Iranian pilots were sent to intercept a bright object. Ground witnesses saw something unusual. The military responded. As the pilots approached, they reported failures. In some accounts, weapon systems and communications were affected. Then, when they backed away, systems return. This kind of detail is why Tehran ranks high. It is not only a light in the sky, it is a sequence, a response, a pursuit, reported interaction. The evidence here is not a perfect photo. It is the paper trail. It is the fact that a serious incident was reported through official channels. It is also the fact that the report was taken seriously by outside agencies. Now, the strongest objections. Bright objects can be misread at night. A planet can look like a strange light. But a planet does not chase jets. So the key question becomes, did the pilots truly see a maneuvering object? Or did stress and confusion create that impression? Equipment failures can happen for normal reasons. A jet can have issues. A system can fail. But the pattern, reported more than once, is what keeps the case alive. What remains unknown. The full sensor record, the exact technical cause of failures, and the identity of what the pilots were chasing. In quiet archive terms, Tehran is a case about a military reacting to something it did not understand. It is one of the better military case files from the 20th century. Number 3. Someone asks, what about a case where military witnesses report a close encounter, a craft on the ground, and physical traces, with an early written memo? A major example is Rendlesham Forest in 1980. The core claim is that US military personnel stationed in the UK reported strange lights near their base. Some say they saw a craft, some say they approached it. There are claims of marks on trees and ground impressions. There is also an early memo written by a deputy base commander. Rendlesham is sometimes called the British Roswell. That label is dramatic, but it can confuse more than it helps. There was no confirmed crash. There was a series of nights with lights and reports. The strength is the witnesses and the record. People point to the memo because it was written close to the events. It is not a book written decades later. It is a short, official-style summary of an incident. There are also audio recordings. The recordings are not perfect, but they show the tone. People are in the woods. They are reacting in real time. The strongest objections focus on mixed accounts. Witnesses disagree on details. Some say they saw a structured object. Others say it was lights. Some suggest a lighthouse in the distance. Some suggest stars. A bright light through trees can look like a moving object. Physical traces are also complicated. Marks on trees can come from many causes. Ground impressions can be old. A site can be contaminated by later visitors. What remains unknown, whether there was a single real object, and whether any physical trace can be securely tied to that object. In quiet archive terms, Rendlesham stays high because it is not one story. It is a cluster. It is military witnesses. It is an early memo. And it is an event that continued to be discussed because it never got a single clean explanation that satisfied everyone. Number 2, someone asks, what is the strongest mass witness close encounter claim in modern times, especially involving children, where testimony has remained consistent? A major example is the aerial school incident in 1994 in Zimbabwe. The core claim is that a group of school children reported seeing a craft near their school. Many reported beings. Many described the beings as small. Many described large eyes. Many described a feeling or message, often described later as a warning about technology and the environment. The evidence is mostly testimony. That is a weakness. But the testimony has 2 strengths. First, the number of witnesses. Second, the fact that interviews were done soon after. Children were interviewed. Some interviews were recorded. They drew pictures. They described what they saw. Supporters of the case argue that the core story stayed stable over time. They argue that the children were not all repeating a single scripted line. They had their own words. They had their own small differences, but the main shape stayed. Craft, beings, a close event. The strongest objections are serious. Children can influence each other. A story can spread in a group. An interviewer can lead questions. Adults can accidentally signal what answer they expect. A stressful moment can be reinterpreted. Another objection is that we lack a strong physical record. There is no confirmed radar, no military response, no recovered object. So the case is a human case, not a sensor case. What remains unknown, whether there was a real external event, and if so, what it was. In quiet archive terms, aerial is high because it is one of the few cases where many witnesses report not just a light, but a close encounter with beings. It is also a case that forces a careful listener to sit with uncertainty, because it is powerful, and it is also fragile. It rests on human memory. Number 1, someone asks, what is the strongest single case in this list if you want a credible witness, an early investigation, and physical traces? A strong answer is the Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro, New Mexico in 1964. The core claim is that a police officer pursued what he thought was a car or a disturbance. He then saw an unusual object on the ground. He reported seeing figures near it. Then he saw the object lift off with a loud roar and a flame. After it left, there were marks on the ground. The evidence people point to includes the witness, a working police officer, not a person looking for attention. The report was made quickly. Investigators arrived. Physical traces were documented, ground impressions, burned areas, a case file. The strongest objections include hoax and secret testing. Could someone have staged it? Could it have been an experimental craft? Could it have been a prank? But many investigators have argued the hoax theory is hard. It would have required planning. It would have required equipment. It would have required timing. And it would have required taking a big risk in front of a police officer. What remains unknown is the origin. If it was human, whose? If it was a test, why it happened there? And if it was not human, why it appeared so briefly? In quiet archive terms, Socorro is strong because it is tight. It is also strong because it is simple to picture. A working officer on patrol, a sudden event, a short chase, a stop, a look, a shock, and then the object lifting away. There is not a long chain of rumor needed to start the case. It begins in the moment. The timeline matters. When a report is made quickly, the mind has less time to grow a story. When investigators arrive quickly, the ground has less time to be disturbed. And when a witness has a job that demands accuracy, people take the first report more seriously. Another reason the case stays high is that it contains both a visual report and a physical scene. Many UFO stories have only one or the other, either a distant light with no trace, or a claimed trace with no clear witness. Socorro, in its best telling, has both. A witness who says he saw an object close, and a scene where marks were found. None of that proves first contact, but it does increase the cost of a simple dismissal. You cannot wave it away with one sentence. You have to do work. And the objections also demand respect. Could it have been a prank? Could it have been a secret test? Could it have been a balloon with a frame? Could it have been a strange experimental device? Could a group have staged it? The reason these objections struggle is not because they are impossible. It is because they require a specific kind of planning. They require putting a risky stunt in front of a police officer. They require leaving marks that would fit the story. They require escaping. They require getting lucky. That does not mean no human explanation exists. It means the human explanation must be detailed. It must account for the witness. It must account for the scene. It must account for the timeline. So the quiet archive posture is to hold Socorro as a strong file. Not because it gives us a clear answer, but because it resists casual erosion. It survives the first wave of lazy jokes. It survives the first wave of fast debunking. And after those waves pass, something is still there. A report, a place, and an unanswered question. A short timeline, a serious witness, physical traces, and early attention. Before we close this countdown, we slow down one more time. Not to add new claims, not to pile on drama, just to make the record feel complete. Because lists can move too fast. 10 names, 10 dates, 10 places, and the mind can lose the shape of them. So we walk the line again, from 10 to 1, and we let each entry settle. We return to number 10, the wow signal. A moment captured on paper. A narrow spike that stood out from normal background noise. If you have never looked at radio astronomy data, it can feel strange. You do not see a craft. You do not see a face. You see numbers. But in science, numbers are often the first door. A line on a graph. A signal that should not be there. A spike that appears at a clean frequency. In that way, the wow signal is like a single footprint at the edge of a dark field. Not enough to convict anyone. Not enough to tell you what animal made it. But enough to say something passed here once. The most careful way to hold the wow signal is to keep it in two hands. In one hand is the reason it mattered. It was narrow. It was strong. It rose and fell like a distant fixed source. It happened in a frequency neighborhood that researchers already cared about. Those are the reasons it became famous. In the other hand is the reason it cannot be used as proof. It did not repeat. It was not seen again. And science needs repeats. Science needs the second footprint, the third, a pattern. Without that, it stays a question, a clean question. Then number 9, Aguadisha, a modern camera, a modern aircraft, an infrared view that does not feel like a movie. It feels like work, a sensor looking at a target, a system trying to hold a lock, a coastline below, water, a small object that does not announce what it is. This case teaches a simple lesson. A video is not a verdict. A video is a measurement, and every measurement depends on context. If you know distance, you can estimate speed. If you do not, you can fool yourself. A small thing close can look like a big thing far. A drifting thing can look like a fast thing. A camera that pans can make the world slide under a target. At the same time, Aguadilla stays on lists because it is not just a witness story. It is a government censor clip. That raises the bar. It does not solve the case, but it changes the starting point. Then, number 8, Nimitz, the tic-tac. This is the kind of case people imagine when they think of a modern mystery. Not a farmer alone, not a story told 50 years later, but trained pilots, a carrier group, radar operators, briefings, a structured response. The heart of Nimitz, in calm terms, is that multiple people in different roles described the same basic problem. Something was in the training area. It did not match known traffic. It moved in ways that were hard to fit to normal flight. And when pilots closed in, they saw an object with a simple shape and no obvious means of lift. The most honest way to hold this case is to admit both sides. It is strong because it is layered. It is limited because the public does not have the full classified packet. We have accounts. We have pieces. We do not have everything. So we cannot close the book. But we also cannot pretend it is nothing. Then number 7, gimbal. A short clip that became a symbol. A dark shape. A locked sensor. Voices reacting. A rotation that looks strange. This case is a reminder that modern systems are not simple eyes. They are machines. They can create glare effects. They can rotate images. They can shift contrast. They can hide details. So gimbal is not a perfect picture of a craft. It is a short window into an encounter. Why keep it in the top 10? Because it is real military footage. Because it was part of a broader period of reports. Because it is not a story told only in the dark corners of the internet. It is part of a public record. Then, number 6. Go fast. Another official clip. Another small object over water. Another moment where the name suggests one thing and the geometry suggests another. Go fast is useful because it forces the listener to accept a hard truth. Sometimes a mystery is created by perspective. A moving camera, a moving aircraft, a moving background, a target with unknown range. If you put the wrong range into the math, the speed looks impossible. If you put in a different range, the speed becomes normal. So go fast sits lower not because it is fake, but because its best mundane explanations are stronger. Yet it remains a case file, because it is still an unknown in official terms, and because it is part of a larger pattern of reports. Then number 5, the Belgian wave. A long season of sightings. A national conversation. Police, military, radar, civilians. Many reports describing triangle shapes. This is not a clean lab experiment. It is messy. And that is exactly what makes it human. When a wave begins, people look up. They tell each other what they saw. They compare notes. And the story can spread. That is the main objection. Social spread can turn normal things into a pattern. And still, the Belgian wave does not vanish. Because the response was serious. Because some reports came from people with training. Because it lasted. Because it involved more than one night of confusion. It also teaches another harsh lesson. A single hoax can poison a real story. One fake photo can become the main image. And then the entire case is treated like a joke. So Belgium is a case about both the unknown and the noise around it. Then number 4, Tehran. A night intercept. A bright object. Pilots in the air. Systems that reportedly failed. A chase. A report. Tehran sits high because it reads like a military incident report, not like a campfire tale. It has sequence, it has action, it has a response. It has claims that something about the approach was linked to equipment trouble. The calm stance is not to take that as proof of a super weapon. The calm stance is to admit that the pattern is unusual. Equipment does fail, but the combination of witness reports and the documented reaction is what keeps it alive. Then number 3, Rendlesham, a forest, a base nearby, several nights, several witnesses, a memo, audio, a sense of people going towards something they did not understand. Rendlesham is often pulled in 2 directions. One side says it is a lighthouse and confusion. Another side says it is a craft and a close encounter. The archive view is that it is a mixed file. There are solid pieces, like the early memo. There are weak pieces, like late retellings that add details. So we treat it like a case that has a core and a cloud. A core of witnesses and a record. A cloud of later story growth. Then, number 2, Aerial School, a group of children. A short event. A story that stayed with them. This case is powerful because it is human. It is not a censor. It is not a military report. It is a moment that shaped a room full of young minds. Supporters say that kind of shared shock is hard to fake. Skeptics say that children can share stories quickly. Both ideas are possible. So the archive posture is gentle. We do not call children liars. We also do not treat testimony alone as a sealed proof. We treat it as a human record that demands care. And then number 1, Socorro, a police officer, a close-range sighting, a short timeline, physical marks, early investigation. This is the kind of case that investigators like, because it is tight. It is not endless. It does not rely on a chain of rumor. It starts. It happens. It leaves traces. And it is looked at while the ground is still fresh. If there was a hoax, it would have required bold planning. If it was a test, it raises questions about safety and secrecy. If it was something unknown, it remains unknown. That is the quiet truth of all 10 files. Each one has a hook. Each one has a limit. Each one leaves something unresolved. Now, as we close this countdown, we return to the most important rule. A strong case is not the loudest story. It is the one with the clearest record, the least distortion, the best chain of evidence, and the most honest space left for what we do not know. We also return to a second rule. A case can be strong in different ways. Some cases are strong because of instruments, radar, infrared, structured reports. Some cases are strong because of people, a credible witness, a group of witnesses, a written memo close to the event. And some cases are strong because of traces, marks on the ground, burned areas, a pattern that can be visited and measured. But every type of evidence has a weakness. Instruments can misread, they can glitch, they can be fooled by angles and range. People can misperceive, they can be scared, they can fill in gaps, they can be influenced. Traces can be contaminated, they can be made by ordinary causes, they can be changed by time. So the best way to listen to a first contact list is not to ask for one perfect piece. It is to ask for a web where different kinds of evidence support each other, and where the web does not break the moment you pull on one thread. That is why the list has a mix: a signal case, a few modern sensor cases, a wave case, a couple older military cases, and a couple human testimony cases. Now we let each case expand a little more in the mind, not as new facts, but as a calm way of seeing what the case actually is. With the wow signal, the mind often jumps to a message, but the honest frame is narrower. It is an anomaly. It is a single data point, and it is a lesson in scientific patience. If something calls out once and never again, you do not build a cathedral on it. You put it in a folder. You label it. You keep listening. And you do not let your hope turn a question into a certainty. With Aguadilla, the mind often jumps to speed and water entry. But the honest frame is measurement under uncertainty. It is a camera looking at a dot. It is a dot moving over a textured background. It is a system trying to hold lock. It is analysts arguing about range. So the right posture is not to declare it solved. The right posture is to treat it like a training example. If you want to learn how misreadings happen, you study geometry. If you want to learn how a real unknown might look, you also study geometry. Because in both cases, the camera is not lying. It is just limited. With Nimitz, the mind often jumps to a single heroic pilot story. But the honest frame is a system reacting. Operators see tracks. They talk. They decide to investigate. Pilots go. They report what they see. And the story spreads because it has structure. It has roles. It has a chain. If one person is wrong, another person can still be right. If one sensor is confused, another can still record. That is why it is strong. And that is also why it is hard. Because without the full classified packet, outsiders cannot lock down every detail. We can only say that a serious system reported something that did not fit. With gimbal, the mind often jumps to the rotation. The honest frame is that the clip is short. The sensor is complex, and the image can rotate because the system rotates. But the case is not worthless. It sits in a context of pilots reporting unknowns. It is part of a set, and it carries the simple truth that something was there, recorded by a real platform, even if we argue about what it was. With Go Fast, the honest frame is humility. The clip name is not the physics. The feelings in the cockpit are not the numbers. This is a reminder that even trained people can be fooled by perspective, and that does not make them foolish. It makes them human. With the Belgian wave, the honest frame is that waves are social. A wave can include real unknowns. A wave can also include misreads. A wave can include hoaxes. So the question becomes, was there a kernel? Was there a hard center? A small number of sightings that cannot be dismissed? And if so, what were they? With Tehran, the honest frame is that military events are recorded, but not always explained. A report is not a microscope slide. A report is a story told through a formal channel. It can still contain mistakes, but it also has weight. It means people acted. It means people treated it as real in the moment. With Rendlesham, the honest frame is that memory and place interact. A forest at night is confusing, but a memo is also real. Audio is also real. So we treat it as a case that has a core record and a surrounding fog. With Ariel, the honest frame is that testimony is not trash. It is also not steel. It is a human material. It bends. It holds shapes. It can also warp. So we listen. We note what stays consistent. We note what changes. We avoid insulting people. And we avoid worshipping the story. With Socorro, the honest frame is that physical traces and a quick report are rare gifts. A short timeline reduces the room for story growth. An early investigation reduces the room for later contamination. And a credible witness reduces the room for casual dismissal. These 10 entries are not a verdict. They are a shelf of files. And a shelf can be used in two ways. You can look at a shelf and decide the answer before you open a single folder. You can say it is all real, or you can say it is all nonsense. Both moves are easy, both moves are fast, and both moves are not careful. A quiet archive approach is slower. It is closer to how a good investigator thinks. You ask, what do we know? What do we think? And what do we only feel? What do we know? We know humans misidentify things. We know humans hoax. We know humans get excited and tell stories. We also know that the sky is full of objects, planes, satellites, balloons, drones, birds, lights, reflections, atmosphere. We also know that the world is full of secrets, military programs, testing, sensors, training, classification. And in that world, it is possible for real unknowns to exist, not only aliens. Unknowns could also be human technology or natural effects that are rare. So when we talk about first contact, the honest work is not to pick a side. The honest work is to keep a set of questions alive. If contact was real, what would it look like? Would it be loud? Would it be public? Would it be a clear landing? Or would it look like small events? Short signals, odd sensor tracks, brief sightings, witness stories that do not fit. If contact was not real, why would the stories persist? Because humans are pattern-making animals. Because humans fear the unknown. Because humans love mystery. Because mistakes happen. Because stress changes perception. Because rumor grows. And then there is a third possibility. Not one answer for every file. Some files could be misidentifications. Some could be hoaxes. Some could be secret tests. And some could be genuinely unexplained. That mixed outcome is often what reality looks like. So we do not demand that the whole shelf be one thing. We treat it like a shelf, folder by folder, case by case. Now we let the countdown pass through the mind one last time, but in a softer way, not as a ranking battle, as a slow walk. Number 10 is the listening case, a signal in the noise, a reminder that contact could be quiet, and that a single strange spike is not enough, but it is also not nothing. Number 9 is the camera case, a dot in infrared, a moving background, a measurement that can be read two ways, a lesson in humility about geometry. Number 8 is the fleet case, operators, pilots, and sensors, a system reacting to something that did not fit the expected picture, a case that is strong because it is layered. Number 7 is the clip case, a short window, a strange rotation, a sensor that might be creating an illusion, a case that is strong because it is official, but limited because it is short. Number 6 is the name case, a video called Go Fast, a human reaction, a reminder that a label is not a measurement. Number 5 is the wave case, many witnesses, a national moment, a mix of real reports, mistakes, and at least one confirmed hoax, a case about crowds and patterns. Number 4 is the intercept case, a pilot report, an approach, a claim of system trouble, a formal record, a case that feels like a military event, not a legend. Number 3 is the forest case, a base, a memo, audio, several nights, a case where the core may be smaller than the later story, but the core is still there. Number 2 is the school case, many children, a shared event, a testimony record, a case that is powerful and also vulnerable because testimony is human material. Number 1 is the trace case, a police officer, a short timeline, marks on the ground, a report that was taken seriously, a case that remains one of the cleanest in the archive. And when we say strongest, we do not mean perfect. We mean the files that survive the first hard questions. Who saw it? When did they report it? What records exist? What could it have been? What would a hoax require? What would a misread require? And what remains after those questions? Now, with that shelf in place, we can let the mind rest, because the goal of tonight is not to solve first contact. It is to hold the best files in a calm way, to let mystery exist without panic, and to let uncertainty sit without shame. When we do that, we also become harder to trick. We become less hungry for the loud story. We become more able to notice the quiet details. And if the truth, whatever it is, ever arrives in the open, it will not require us to shout. It will require us to see. So we breathe. We let the cases fade into the background like distant lights. We let the questions become softer. And we return to what we can be sure of tonight. A quiet room, a slow voice, a dark ambience, and a mind that is allowed to drift. Signals, sensors, witnesses, memos, traces, and human memory. If contact is real, it may not arrive in a single bright moment. It may be a pattern, a set of small pressure points on the edge of what we can explain. And tonight, in this quiet archive, we let those pressure points stay what they are. Not a promise, not a fear, just a careful record. Before the countdown fully ends, we let the mind do one more slow scan, not for new facts, but for the shape of the arguments. Because in this topic, people often talk past each other. One person wants proof, another person wants possibility, another person wants comfort, another person wants control. So we name the common patterns in a gentle way. In the signal case, like, wow, the argument is about design. Is the signal narrow? Is it in a meaningful region? Does it have a natural explanation? Is it repeatable? And if it is not repeatable, does it still deserve a file? In the sensor cases, like Aguadilla, Gimbal, and Go Fast, the argument is about geometry, range, angle, speed, wind, parallax, the way a camera can turn the world into a moving map. A sensor does not show the whole truth. A sensor shows a slice, and if you do not know where the slice is, you can cut the wrong shape. In the fleet case, like Nimitz, the argument is about clustering, not one witness, not one machine, but several. And the question becomes, is there enough clustering to rule out a simple mistake? Or is the cluster only a cluster of people reacting to the same confusion? In the wave case, like Belgium, the argument is about time. Does the event persist? Does it have repeated similar reports? Does the wave show a stable core? Or does it show a story spreading and mutating? And if there is mutation, is there still a core? In the intercept case, like Tehran, the argument is about interaction. Did something in the sky seem to respond? Did it seem to approach? Did it seem to trigger failures? Or was the interaction an illusion made by a complex night situation? In the forest case, like Rendlesham, the argument is about record versus story. What was written close to the event? What was recorded? What was said years later? What grew? What stayed the same? And what can be explained by place? A lighthouse, a star, a flash, a fearful mind in a dark forest. In the school case, like Ariel, the argument is about the human mind, group influence, memory, the power of an unusual moment, and the question of whether many people can share an experience without it being a shared invention. And in the trace case, like Socorro, the argument is about constraint, a short timeline, a credible witness, a location that can be inspected, marks that can be photographed, investigators arriving while the scene is still fresh, a case that has fewer places for imagination to hide. These patterns are not a solution, they are a map. And a map helps the listener stay calm, because when you can name the type of argument, you can stop feeling like you must pick a side right away. You can say, this is a signal file, this is a geometry file, this is a memory file, this is a trace file. And you can let each file live in its own lane. You can also remember that the strongest skepticism is not mockery. The strongest skepticism is careful checking. And the strongest openness is not belief. The strongest openness is patience. If a case is real, it will survive calm questions. If a case is not real, it will still teach us something about how humans see. And that is a useful outcome either way, because whether the unknown is in the sky or in the mind, the work is the same. Slow down, measure, listen, do not rush. And with that, the countdown is complete, 10 to 1, a handful of files that people return to again and again. Now we allow the mind to do what it does best at night. We let it drift. We let it reorder the shelf in its own way. We let the cases blur at the edges. If you find yourself holding on to one entry more than the others, that is normal. Some minds prefer the clean measurement of a signal. Some prefer the hard feel of a physical trace. Some prefer the drama of a military intercept. Some prefer the human weight of testimony. But tonight, we do not have to choose. We do not have to make the shelf into a single story. We can let it be what it is, a shelf. And we can also remind ourselves of one final simple thing. Even if none of these cases were contact, the universe is still wide. The stars still burn. The distances are still vast. And the possibility remains. And if some small part of these cases does point to something real, then the truth is still not a monster. It is still just a fact waiting for clearer light. So we treat the unknown the way we treat the dark ocean. We do not pretend it is empty. We do not pretend it is full of monsters. We accept that it is deep. We accept that it is hard to see. And we accept that we can rest anyway. We return to the room. We return to breath. We return to the slow rhythm of a story that does not demand a decision. The archive closes its folder. The paper lies flat. The radio quiets. The camera powers down. The pilots land. The witnesses go home. The forest becomes only trees again. The schoolyard becomes only dust and sun. And the night returns to its usual work, turning the mind down, softening the edges, making space for sleep. And as the night deepens, the mind naturally looks for a single answer. One clean label, real or not real, true or false. But sleep does not need a verdict. Sleep only needs permission. Permission to leave the question on the shelf. Permission to stop tightening the fist around uncertainty. So, gently, we practice letting go. We imagine the shelf again. 10 folders, each with a simple name, a signal, a camera, a fleet, a clip, a wave, An intercept, a forest, a school, a trace. We do not open them. We do not debate them. We simply notice that they are there, and we let them be. In the distance, we can almost hear the quiet hum of human history. People pointing at the sky, people writing reports, people drawing what they saw, people making mistakes, people telling the truth, people being afraid, people being curious. And above all of that, the world keeps turning. The stars keep burning. The oceans keep moving. The wind keeps moving through trees. Tonight, we do not chase the wind. We rest. If you want, you can picture a calm investigator closing the last file. They do not slam it. They do not throw it away. They simply close it. They label it. They set it down. They remind themselves that the unknown is not an emergency. It is just unknown. And that thought can be soothing, because it means you do not have to solve everything to be safe. You do not have to know every answer to be allowed to sleep. So we let the list fade. We let the numbers blur. We let the cases become soft shapes. We return to breath. Slow in, slow out. If you notice your thoughts trying to argue with the list, let them. You do not have to fight them. You can let a thought rise and pass. A thought saying, number 8 should be number 1. A thought saying, number 2 is just a story. A thought saying, number 10 is too small. Let the thoughts pass like clouds. Because tonight is not a debate. It is a soft record, a quiet archive. And when the thoughts thin out, what remains is simple. Breath, darkness, rest. The room stays still. Outside, the world keeps moving, but it does not need you right now. Phones can wait. Arguments can wait. New videos can wait. Tonight is only this. A slow voice. A dark bed of sound. A mind that is allowed to turn off its searchlight. If the unknown is real, it will still be real tomorrow. If it is not, you still deserve rest. The story quiets. And because this is a countdown, the mind may want to count again. So we offer one last gentle count. 10, a signal. 9, a camera. 8, a fleet. 7, a clip. 6, another clip. 5, a wave. 4, an intercept. 3, a forest. 2, a school. 1, a trace. And then the numbers can stop. Because sleep is not a puzzle. Sleep is a letting go. If you like, you can imagine the shelf fading into shadow. The labels become unreadable. The folders become shapes. The shapes become darkness. And the darkness becomes safe. The archive light dims. If you still feel the urge to reach for an answer, let it be a small one. Not who, not why, just what we learned about careful thinking. That a good case has a record. That a weak case collapses when you ask simple questions. That people can be honest and still be wrong. That censors can be real and still be misleading. That a hoax can be simple and still be powerful. And that a true unknown, if it exists, will not be harmed by calm questions. So we let the questions live without pressure. We let them float like dust motes in a beam of light. We do not chase them. We just watch them drift. And if contact is out there, it does not need our fear. And if it is not, we still gain something. A calmer mind, a sharper eye, a quieter relationship with the dark. This was a quiet archive story, where the story ends, sleep begins,